Thank you. I have on my clock that is 7:01, so we will call the meeting to order at 7:01. And the first order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. If you'd like to join me for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The next item is public comment. And as we're going into public comment, I just want to reference a couple things. And I'm always speaking for myself and not speaking for the board. Other to recognize that our policy is limiting the time to 3 minutes. And I think we're going to be kind of timing these just to make sure we can move through our meeting in an orderly fashion. So we will be observing the 3 minutes. I also want to remind people to please, as much as we can, to use civility and decorum, common courtesy while we're addressing each other. Everyone here in this room should be working towards the best benefit for Sylvan Township residents. And we don't need to feel like enemies, we are neighbors. So I just want to say that if we could please remember to be courteous on your side, on the board side, that will help us have positive relations and move our township forward in a positive manner. Sometimes hurtful comments can not only be negative, but actually be a hindrance to our township when other people observe the meetings. So with that said, the first public comment portion is open, and if you'd like to speak, we'll be happy to make public comment. Yes, Carol.
Yes. My name is Carol Strahler, and I'm a resident of the township, and I live on Conway. Do I have a mic here at all?
Well, no.
I'll speak louder. I'll use my teacher voice. All right.
If you want to use Sandy's, I think it will unplug and you can.
I know the mask doesn't help.
As far as it goes.
Okay.
Okay.
Is it on?
Yes.
Okay, so let's start again. My name is Carol Strahler. I'm a resident of Sylvan Township, and I live on Conway Road. I'm a member of the Dark Skies Chelsea group. Last year, we worked with the city of Chelsea in educating people about light pollution in the city, and we helped rewrite the ordinance for the city, and we would like to educate our township officials. And going forward, perhaps we can help them or we'll work on the ordinance. And we're here to give out materials tonight and to educate all of you as well. Light pollution can affect your wildlife. It can affect your own health. It is a waste of energy and of resources and money. And I'll be handing out some brochures, and there are several other people who are part of our group who will talk just a little bit on some specific issues. Okay.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, Carol.
Welcome.
Other public comments tonight? Yes, Patrick.
So many things to talk about, but I want to follow up on my comment from last month about the idea of having an informal citizen forum where people can get together and discuss their views and concerns and issues face to face, if possible. And I did note that on the agenda there's a proposal for some educational sessions for the next 3 months, where somebody would come in and explain land use and planning concepts, as I understand it. I'd like to do both, if possible. To use this room as more of an informal meeting space where you change of views, And the educational part of it is also very important though, because people have to be well informed. I'm not sure how you put that together, if you want to put that together. But I want to put that thought in your mind as you deliberate about the motion that's going to be on the floor tonight. Perhaps the first three of these open forums could begin with an educational setting, educational session, and then be followed by the informal discussion right after that. That's one idea. All this stuff is very important as we get into the master plan process, of course, right? People have to be well informed about what the process is, what the master plan is. And also people have to be able to talk to each other and actually have an exchange of views. And people's personal views have a lot too. I'm not sure how to put it together, but if you can, that'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Yeah. Yes. Hello. You can't go far, but. That's great.
Have to go up for him.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, hi, I'm Doug Jackson of Sylvan Township, and I'm a certified Michigan Master Naturalist. I'm speaking on behalf of the Dark Sky Initiative. I work part-time as a naturalist. I've become aware of multiple scientific studies that fully support the need for reducing light pollution, as well as other measures humans must act on immediately to avoid global environmental and ecological collapse. Biologists around the globe are signaling alarming trends towards the Earth's sixth mass extinction, which, unlike all past mass extinctions, is primarily driven by human activity that can be altered to either slow down or reverse this trend. Current species extinction rates are found to be over 1,000 times that of normal or background extinction rates. The Earth has lost 40% of its insect population in the last 30 years. In the US and Canada, the insects most affected by light pollution and other human factors have been our pollinators, such as bees, butterflies, moths, and beetles. The International Union for Conservation of Nature has recently red-listed our monarch butterflies as endangered. 1/3 of North America's firefly species are facing extinction due to many human factors, including light pollution. Studies have shown that light pollution, especially with white LED lights, drives caterpillar populations down nearly 50%, inhibits adult insect activity, including death through exhaustion, increases predation on adults, and disrupts reproduction. So what? These insects are not only pollinators for plants that humans depend upon for food, they are the base of the food chain. A collapse in insect population equals a collapse in all species. If we lose our insects, we lose our birds, amphibians, plants, etc. We simply just lose. The US and Canada have seen a 30% loss in bird population since 1970. The Earth's human population in 1970 was 3.7 billion. In the US and Canada alone, we have lost nearly that same number, 3 billion, in bird population since that time. Light pollution has been shown to contribute in unnatural bird deaths through disorientation, disrupting migration patterns, disrupting vocal communications, collisions with buildings. Light pollution has also been shown to disrupt amphibian populations in our already periled wetlands. While the efforts of one township will not on its own solve these problems, the efforts of one township collectively, with the increasing number of communities participating in these efforts, can make the difference. Let's tell our grandchildren that we did everything we could to help prevent this catastrophe. Our regulations on artificial nighttime lighting will not only help this national and global initiative, but will immediately impact our community with an improved quality of life. I ask the board to please move forward with any dark sky efforts in reducing light pollution.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Goranson.
I'm also representing Dark Sky. Okay. Just have a couple sentences. My name is Dave Jorgensen, Sylvan Township resident, and a member of the University Lowbrow Astronomy Club, which has 200 members. Chelsea is 5 miles east of me. From my location, the eastern night sky is bright and prevents telescopic observation of many astronomical objects. We refer to this situation as a light dome. The brightness of the dome has recently intensified, perhaps because of the Sylvan Crossing new light. Most of our members treat astronomy as a hobby and conduct many community outreach activities. But the work of several of our members contributes to scientific analysis of our universe. Astronomical activity is significantly restricted by these light domes. Many communities around the country have reduced their light pollution to improve astronomical work, and I hope Sylvan Township can work toward that goal as well.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Reinhardt.
Dave Reiner, Conway Road. One of the things that came up at I'm trying to, I don't know this for sure, but at the planning commission meeting, I know last time, we ended with the township board meeting where Patrick's application, that's just because it happens to be his, it was rejected by the planning commission, but then it was set back there because the planning commission apparently did not know it was a conditional application. I found that rather hard to believe, and it made me wonder whether the request was even read by some members of the planning commission, and whether their vote was already predetermined, no matter what was on the application. And I think that's an insult to citizens, and it just should not be tolerated. Currently, there are 3 positions on that expire on the planning commission. It expired in January past tense. And I would say before anybody is reappointed or anyone new is appointed, that they are asked whether they can fairly judge something on its merits as opposed to prejudging and already having decided. And if any member of the planning commission who may be reappointed or is not, it's just on the planning commission, did not read that, I do not believe they should be serving on that commission.
Thank you. Any other public comments? All right. The next item on our agenda tonight is the Citizen of the Year for 2022. We can strike nominee because we took care of, the board voted at our last board meeting. And we're thrilled and honored tonight to give our Citizen of the Year, Sylvan Township Citizen of the Year for 2022 award to Chris Shar. And if you're not already familiar, well, let's give him a quick round of applause. If you're not already familiar with Chris, he has been working diligently for all of us here in Washtenaw County. And that's an award for you in honor of your exemplary work. And so he's been working very hard for Washtenaw County. All of us on the broadband initiative has driven almost all of the roads in Washtenaw County to determine where needs were. And we're just thrilled and so proud that you're a Sylvan Township resident and are working towards wonderful things at the county level, beyond that too. So here, I'm gonna give you. Okay, here, let me come around and look at that.
Yep.
I'm very good for
Thank you. I never would have imagined anything like this. I mean, I'm just doing what I do. I've been doing this for a lot of years. There's a lot of people that really made this happen. It started, 2016, probably sooner or earlier than that, with the Washtenaw Broadband Task Force. Barb, Ben, Gary, Melanie, and all of the township supervisors across Washtenaw County and their advisors, I mean, their associates. Amanda was part of that. And then even for the township itself, we started our own, thanks to the board here. And I noticed we have Patrick here, Rod, Amanda, myself. I think we have a quorum, actually. So, but what we've done is really pretty amazing. We are going to be probably the first county in the state to have completed a program like this, where we've gone through a lot of different efforts to get a lot of different funding sources. And we are in the process right now of building broadband to every single resident in Washtenaw County. And it will be completed by the end of next year. That effort has gotten a lot of attention around the state. We are now working and, just our firm, my wife and I, and she's been riding shotgun with me for the thousands of miles we've driven. We're doing 9 counties right now, and we've passed almost 250,000 homes in our work and trying to get the funding for it. There's a lot of funding coming into the state. We're right in the middle of it, trying to get broadband to absolutely everybody we can get them to. And it really all started right here. This is the model. We're going to be the first, and a lot of counties around the state are paying attention to what we've done. So it's a real honor to do this, but it's what I've done for 40 years. So if all this work hadn't happened, I wouldn't have had anything to do with it. It never would have came up. But so there's a lot of other people to thank here, and I really appreciate this. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Skippy. It's so exciting. After Chris and I talked, and he told me how he's doing the same thing he's done for Washtenaw in these other counties are asking, how are you guys doing this? We want to do it too. And I just bursting with pride to know that you are from here. And this is the first county, right? And like I, kind of said on the phone, everybody wants to be Washtenaw now that Washtenaw is doing this. So we can all be proud that this is happening here, that this is our hometown guy here. We can say we knew him when he's going to be doing this nationally or something. So thank you on behalf of everyone. It's a really worthwhile endeavor, and we're honored just to be able to recognize you for your work. Yes. Okay, the next item is the Dark Skies presentation. So, Mr. Wright.
I'll stand up here beside Sandy, but I don't think I need that. The microphone. Just for everybody else's information, I provided a few pages that went to the board ahead of the meeting here. And those are some figures and some key takeaways that I'll go over during the presentation tonight. Again, my name is Steve Wright, and I have been a 45+ year resident of the city of Chelsea. And my involvement with the Chelsea Dark Sky initiative then began a couple of years back when the city was revising their zoning ordinance, and we got involved in it at that point in time. One of the things that I have a clear recollection of, although it takes me back a long ways in time, growing up on a small farm in rural Washington State then, and knowing that every time that I went outside, especially during the cold winter nights, then I would see the Milky Way. And now because of the light pollution that has taken place over that 60-some years of time, then you have to be in pretty special circumstances to be able to see the Milky Way at all. So one of the first things then that I presented in this packet then was a series of satellite images over a period of time from the late 1950s up until about 2000 then, that showed the increase in light intensity in the night sky then over the United States. And that it only takes us to 2000, which was the end of the study that was involved in the production of those. But it's been estimated that the light intensity in the US in the time since about 2010 up to about 2020 has just about doubled. And I'll give some information that explains how that came about happening, and you see how sad it is that things have to happen that way sometimes. I also have a set of local maps and that are more recent in time that are associated with also satellite images, but they're very localized here then. It's just the area surrounding the city of Chelsea then. And when you look at it, you can see the areas outside of the city where there are sort of bright pockets of light. And for those of you that are familiar with the area around here, you know exactly what the sources of that light intensity is. Chrysler Proving Grounds and Cassidy Lake and a couple of other places. And so those images were taken or composite of the year 2011, 2012, excuse me, and 2021. And so it covers a much shorter period of time, but even for those images, you can see the increase in light intensity over that period of time. One of the problems is, however, that it's not just the amount of light intensity that we do that in terms of changes that have occurred, but there have been some situations where the light that we now have is a little bit more harmful to the environment and to human health than what it was previously. And specifically, Doug mentioned this earlier when he talked about the LED lighting and its effect on animal life then. But we refer to the light spectrum that occurs from the artificial lighting then by a term that's called color temperature. And it's not a temperature at all. It's just essentially where you are on the light spectrum. And so in that color temperature scale, then there is on one end, pretty much incandescent lighting that we would think about traditionally then, which tends to be yellow, each color and so on. And then on the other end of the spectrum, then where the light is oftentimes generated by LEDs and other types of newer types of lighting, then it's more on the bluish end of the spectrum then. So sodium incandescent lights have a color temperature of about 2700 kelvins. Early LEDs then were more on the order of about 5,000 or a little bit more Kelvin, so a lot more blue. There have been increases in or improvements in technology over the last years, and so that's come down a little bit, but it's still a white to bluish light source, and that has a lot of effect then on some of the ecological impacts, as Doug mentioned earlier with regards to plants and animals. But this also happens with humans. And I put in a couple of titles of research articles that reference the effect of night lighting on human health. And specifically with regards to the LED lighting, one of the things that it does is it sort of messes up the melatonin production, which in turn then disrupts the wake-sleep cycles that people have then. So that's a significant health issue in and of itself. There's another article there referenced that was conducted by Northwestern University, and they did a fairly long-term longitudinal study and found that people who were exposed to more night lighting in general then experienced higher levels of obesity, higher blood pressure, and diabetes. So in addition to these effects, then using excess light where it's not needed just basically wastes energy, and that's an important, and should be an important consideration just in and of itself. It's estimated that of night artificial lighting, then about 30% of it is effectively wasted because it doesn't target the area that the light is set up to impact. Now with LED lights, LED lighting reduces energy consumption by up to 60% or maybe even a little bit more than that. So it's a relatively high amount. But then when I mentioned, for example, that the light intensity over about the last 10 years has doubled, that's largely due to the American Recovery Act that was passed in 2009 as a response to the Great Recession. And one of the components of that act was to encourage energy efficiency. And so a lot of people installed LED lights then as a result of that activity. But what they didn't do was they didn't maintain the overall light intensity. They ended up increasing the lighting intensity because it was cheaper to use, and in the end, there was nothing gained by that whole process. And that shows a little bit about some kind of misguided ideas if you don't have a good picture on, how things are impacting here. So one of the overriding principles then with regards to night lighting is that there are certain objectives that you should be trying to achieve. And a big one is use only what you need. And specifically, that refers to putting the light where it is needed. Only when you need it, that is, we have with timer technologies and so on today, you don't have to keep a light on all night long then if it's not necessary. No more light intensity than needed. And then finally, as a result of some of the things that I just said here, no bluer than is needed. Yeah. So these are general principles then that one can take then in framing what a zoning ordinance then could handle. With regards to the light intensity that might be needed, then there are recommended standards then by an illuminating engineering society. And so that has documentation about what recommended light levels would be for different types of residential, internal and external, as well as other businesses and things like that. So that kind of information, at least in terms of recommended standards, then is available. And so these can influence zoning decisions then, which most of the time are formulated by prevention of light trespass. That's usually the main concern that goes along with it. And the kinds of things that you can do are control the light levels, shielding of the light sources, and then finally, light color temperature is another factor that could fit into that thing. Now I have a little diagram in the packet then that shows different kinds of shielding, essentially from an unshielded situation where the light is going up as well as down. A situation where there's a cap over the top of the fixture then that deflects most of the light in a plane below the horizontal then. And what is referred to as fully shielded in many zoning ordinances and so on just means that no light goes above the level of the light fixture itself then. And so it's also possible in the case of like trespass then to put shielding on one section of the fixture so that the light doesn't shine in the direction, let's say, of a bedroom window or something like that then. So those are all options that are available. Now, the color temperature is not normally something that's handled in zoning ordinances, but there are cities that do have those kinds of specifications and included in their zoning ordinances. And usually the requirement is that the color temperature of the fixtures then should be less than 3,000 kelvins. That's a typical situation. And that's relatively easily achievable even for LED lighting today. Okay, the last thing I'm going to mention then, we just took a quick stab at this, by no means completed or anything else, but we took the zoning ordinance for Sylvan and just did a word search to look for light and lighted and lighting and so on to find out what parts of the zoning ordinance had things that could refer to lighting. And it's not a big number of items, but there's quite a few actually still. And what we did, or what I did in this handout then, was took 3 or 4 different components of the ordinance, reproduced it, and then made some possible recommendations then that would address some of the issues here. Suggested wording, light levels, shielding, things of that sort then that might be possible to do if you were to choose to modify your zoning ordinance to deal with lighting issues. And partly I think I did that because in another meeting a month or so back, then somebody said something about well, they weren't sure that they wanted to hire a bunch of consultants and to kind of get this zoning ordinance redrafted then. And I'm just saying that it doesn't have to be that complicated. Okay, so with that, I'll stop my presentation.
Yes, thank you so much. And thank you all for coming out tonight and bringing your attention to this concern, this problem. As Sylvan is developing more and we are you don't have a choice in some of these consent judgment properties they're building out. So we want to make sure we're being thoughtful as we can be. So we appreciate this. I think we've all seen Sylvan Crossing 2 is starting to put their homes there, and they have some lighting there. That looks like one of the examples, and maybe not the good one, maybe not the best. So I appreciate you bringing this forward. It's very timely. Next, we have our approval of the consent agenda, and the consent agenda, excuse me, contains draft meeting minutes from January 10th and January 19th. Presentation of bills and correspondence committee reports. Both of the draft meeting minutes contain closed session minutes. So Clerk Ninke has those and she's going to hand them out. These are not for the public. There's a special way that we treat closed session minutes. So thank you so much. So once the board has had a chance to look at these, if there's no questions or problems with anything contained in the consent agenda, once he's had a look at these, we'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Support? All right, thank you. Motion for Rod, supported by Sandy. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Okay, thank you. Oh. Okay. So then we are moving to the business portion of the meeting, or, we have no unfinished business, so the first new business is inspection of public assessing records. This is a new, policy that Catherine Scholar, assessor, said is going to be necessary. It's, distinct from the policy we have on, looking at other records. All right. So it's just a procedure, has information about copies for fees, information about FOIA. If you believe there's a clerical error, mutual mistake of fact, how to contact board for review. And then Catherine's information there. She's supporting it here with a general copy of the General Property Tax Act. That talks about how this information is going to be necessary now. So I will, I'll move that we approve. Policy admin 22, inspection of public assessing records.
A second.
No, motion by Kathy, supported by Rod. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay. Thank you. Next is our supplemental pay for employees. So we, you know, since COVID times and people having COVID and being off with COVID, we kind of had a policy where people were compensated. I don't think anything was written down. Also, when we talked about paying employees for holidays, we were wondering whether the board would consider deputy clerk, deputy treasurer, deputy supervisor as a person who would be compensated for holidays. So, you know, as we know, deputies aren't necessarily here every day as the receptionist is. We don't have very many hourly people. So when we do have holidays, would the board like to include the deputies in that?
Well, I talked with Pat, my deputy, and she said she doesn't feel that's appropriate for deputies. I mean, because they don't have to be there during business hours. They're able to work around those hours.
Right.
So,
Right.
I agree with her.
Okay.
I couldn't hear you.
Sorry.
So I talked with Pat, my deputy, and she said because the deputies can work outside of those hours, they're not bound to the business hours, such as an hourly person like Susan or Kathleen Ransom.
Right.
She didn't feel that was appropriate for the deputies to give them sick time because of the flexibility in their, you know, their schedules.
I think they should get, if holiday falls during the days that they're scheduled to work.
They're never scheduled to work.
Yeah. And the funny thing about a deputy is, and things can change, and you know, some clerks or treasurers use their deputies more. some hardly ever come in at all. And so I don't know if you guys have standard times that they come in.
For me, I would think
So-
during elections, I use her a lot.
Right.
During tax seasons, I'm sure people have trending with much more,
Right,
you know, and so it fluctuates based on what our offices are doing.
right.
There isn't a regular-
But they're compensated for all the hours that they're here when it's busy season.
Yes,
Mhm.
yeah.
Just
Yeah,
want to make sure everybody's getting paid for
Oh,
the time they're putting in.
Right.
Sure.
that's right. Okay, so we're feeling it's the board's decision, or we can put this into a motion, maybe to strike the deputies from this. So the positions affected, to define supplemental pay for employees would be floater. Well, she's listed a few people, but additional hourly employees. We have other hourly employees or zoning administrators hourly. So if we're just gonna make this for hourly people, well, we can say that. Well,
Right, but deputies are hourly.
yeah, that's true. So that if we're distinct, we're saying office assistant receptionist, floater. Zoning administrator is hourly. Are we including that individual? And we also have assessor assistant on here. She kind of operates like a deputy or our assessor, and she's not always here. I would feel comfortable saying hourly people who are here on a everyday basis for business. That would include floater, receptionist, zoning administrator. Anybody else that we have that's hourly, that's not a deputy?
I don't think so.
Guys, this time.
Okay.
The only thing that I would like to see maybe would be deputies get paid for Christmas and New Year. For the 2 days that they're.
but like this past season when we closed for the week.
Right.
And there were really 2 days that we were closed that were outside of the holiday, thing. Okay, I mean, that makes sense.
Just for that.
How does the board feel about that? This is item 2, sort of on this policy. If additional holidays are approved by the township board between Christmas and New Year's, those days will be paid. So we could make a caveat on that and say for all hourly employees and deputies.
Yeah, that works.
Then I think what I'd like to do is maybe make number 2 kind of at the bottom, just to make that distinct here. We'll do 1 where it's recognized holidays. Acts of God, severe storms, when the office is closed will be paid. Additional holidays will be paid. And then the 4th item here is at this time, if an employee tests positive for COVID, those days will be paid time off up to a maximum of X days. The CDC guidelines, the current CDC guidelines, which were recently sent to me by a helpful resident, says that, you know, they're still under if you are having symptoms, you've been exposed, you are to isolate for 10 days. That was the current guidelines. So 10 days when we're open Monday through Thursday could encompass almost 2 weeks, right? Like 8 days if we're open Monday through Thursday.
Well. Possibly, it depends on where we fall.
It depends on where it would fall, right? And if it, you know, if you start counting on, if you were symptomatic on Sunday, you gotta start counting Monday's day 1. Then that really would be that whole week and part of the next week. Cause I don't know, I think we previously did 5 days. 5 days paid,
5 days there.
Yeah,
was 7, it was 5.
yeah. I know, and I was surprised kind of to see that back to the 10 days for isolation, but yeah, what would the board like to do? I mean, it'd be nice for us to have it defined, because people
agree.
still are testing positive for COVID.
And we didn't have a maximum of 4.
I don't know if, I don't think we had something written down, maybe it was in the COVID preparedness policy that we did in 2020. But I think it was 5 days before, but I don't know, I don't know how.
I think originally it was 7,
Okay.
and then we reduced it to 5 when it went to 5.
Mhm.
Whatever the CDC's recommendation is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Should be what it is.
Maybe that, and if that changes, maybe
Right.
there's something in here to state that.
Right.
also.
That we will
Right.
go by the CDC's guidelines.
Yeah.
Right. That makes sense.
yeah. So do we want to, so we're gonna reference a solid number of days and just say that, or are you saying that we wanna just reference whatever the current CDC?
Yes.
Yeah, maybe time off up to a maximum 10 days or CDC recommendations. Whichever is less.
Mhm.
That way at least it would cover it. If it drops back again,
Yeah,
we don't have to revisit the whole thing.
so should we say 10 days or should we say 8 days? Cause I'm thinking really the maximum, if you're 10 days, the maximum, I mean, we could say 10, but really those. To maximize the time, it would really probably be that Monday through Thursday and then the next week, Monday through Thursday.
You're right.
So we could say 8,
I would say.
a maximum of 8 days, or. Would you repeat that, Rod? I think you said 8 days or CD
Or
or,
according to CDC guidelines. Whichever is less.
So do we want verbiage per fiscal year? I
Sorry,
don't-
say that
Mm.
again?
Per fiscal year, we don't give this, I mean, we want this every fiscal year. This would reset every fiscal year.
Like,
Because I don't see that verbiage.
yeah, I think so. It's impossible. Somebody could have COVID twice on a fiscal year though, too. So it's like, I mean, that would be pretty miserable and hopefully you wouldn't be, twice out for 2 weeks. But I mean, January, November, I mean, things could happen. So, yeah. And since most of these are defining like holidays and hourly pay, I think it will be, it is like an annual thing because it's defining the holidays that the board will set at the beginning of the year. If the additional time is set. I think for this, we're okay to not put it on a fiscal year, but I think the sick pay is definitely something, I think that might be up next.
Okay.
So. I mean, that's just my opinion though, whatever the board wants to do. Okay. Right, there was a lot of changes to the document. We feel like we got. Do we want to approve it with changes? I mean, or do you want to make the changes and bring it back then for?
Let's approve it with
Okay.
change.
Yeah, I'm okay.
Okay, okay.
Okay, so let's be clear on, let's give me that, please state the changes we've made so I can be clear.
Okay. Now I need Rod and Sandy, correct me if I'm wrong. So on my form, I have the positions affected are floater, reception office assistant, and zoning administrator.
Assessor assistant.
Well, the assessor assistant, she kind of operates like a deputy for Catherine, where she's not here every day. And sort of a case in point is Martin Luther King Day was a day that the office was closed, but she arranged to come in and work with Catherine.
Okay.
So then we were like, well, do we pay her? Cause she did work and they had a choice. So I think she felt a little like Pat did, that she comes when she can, and so she doesn't feel like she would necessarily be So then floater, receptionist, zoning administrator, we're gonna strike assessor assistant. We could put in any additional hourly employees who may be hired in the future. We'll strike deputies. I think one is fine. I think we could move. Well, number two would just be, with the, so the same sentence, but that we're going, this would be for all hourly employees and deputies. Number three is fine as it is. Number four will be, you know, where the highlighted X's are, the number will be 8 days, or according to CDC recommended guidelines, whichever is less.
Or according to, okay.
And then we, well, it does say after that time has been depleted, additional time off for COVID will not be compensated. Okay, okay. All right, I will make a motion that we approve supplemental pay for hourly employees, personnel policy PER 31 with changes.
I'll second.
Thank you. We have a motion and support. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay. Thank you. Motion carries. Next is kind of a similar one for sick pay. And so we kind of made a determination, the board made a determination that we would have 27 hours of sick pay. But I don't think we formally made a policy. So this is to define sick pay for hourly employees. Hourly employees are issued 27 hours of sick pay from March 31st through the fiscal year April 1st. Well, from April 1st through to March 31st the next year, to be used on a day when they would normally work. Once the 27 hours of sick time has been depleted, sick days will not be compensated.
I'll move to accept policy number 32.
Thank you, Rod.
I'll support that.
Alright, it's Amanda. Motion by Rod, supporting by Amanda. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Thank you. Motion carries. Next item are some proposed updates to admin policy 60, which is cemetery lots and burial spaces. This has been submitted by Larry Dow, who's doing a bang up job as the cemetery sexton. They seem like it's doing well. So he's made some changes, and I think you can see the changes in red that he's proposing to our current policy.
They look great, and so what he did a lot of work.
You did.
Mhm.
And I followed up with the filing fee. I'm trying to remember, the initial administrative filing fee that we had was $150, and he was recommending an increase to 200. And I followed up with him, and he said a lot of cemeteries charge $300, so we thought increasing it by 50 was, you know, still conservative, so. That makes sense.
Well, that makes sense, and that filing fee has been the same since I've been here, and people aren't getting paid the same, hopefully, as 10 years ago as they are now, so it makes sense that those costs would be increasing.
Right.
So I'm glad to hear that that's fair and within.
I will make a motion to approve, the updates to administrative policy 60 cemetery lots and burial spaces.
All right, thank you, Amanda. We have a motion, we have support. Thank you, Sandy. All right, motion by Amanda, support by Sandy. Is there any discussion?
I just think one thing that, and I know this has come up before, when people decorate the grave sites. what's reasonable,
Mhm.
you know? And I know it's hard to spell that out. You know, but
Mhm.
that's the one thing that I struggled with on this.
What page is that?
I was trying to find it again because.
Well, and I
it's
know
too
that
far.
that Larry has had to have some discussions with residents and. They do chapter.
Had it today and I just don't.
How about number 8?
Ground maintenance.
I don't think it fell into that. Oh, yeah, there it was. The very last sentence, I guess.
You're saying of item number,
Item number 8.
Ground maintenance,
the
8, the
versus
last-
The township.
I'm sorry, not the last on that page.
Right.
Put that way.
Yeah. Township clerk shall have the
But
right
it-
and authority
but
to
it-
remove and
And
dispose.
And it goes over.
Right,
but if I'm reading this in black with what we already had,
No, we already have
Yeah.
that in here.
so it would, I think. I know, but if it's clearer, then you go out and say, this is our policy.
Yeah.
Then.
Mhm.
So I think what Larry and I had talked about was having a height restriction, because there were some
That's right.
displays that were really
Gotcha.
almost flagpole tall that
Right.
felt a little. You know,
Okay.
That's what he's talked with me about in the past too, but
Yeah,
it's
I'd be fine
difficult,
with
it's
that.
difficult. Yeah, I see he didn't include anything on that right now, and
Right.
so maybe that's something we can visit in the future.
Yeah.
It's a very touchy situation.
It is.
People are,
It really is.
it's, we want people to be able to honor their loved ones.
Right.
So,
yeah, I feel
Yeah.
comfortable, if he didn't include it, then he found resolution, I'm
Exactly.
hoping, so.
right, all right,
But I'm
and we
okay.
could change it if we need to, but yeah, that's.
I'm okay.
Okay. All right, so we had a motion by Amanda, support by Sandy. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
I,
Opposed, say nay. Okay, motion carries.
I have, it was supported by Rob.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Right.
I had Sandy supported that.
Sandy did.
Okay, sorry,
Yes,
thank you.
I just broke it off. in a
Okay.
second.
Okay, so next item is the minutes transcribing of Board of Trustees and Planning Commission.
So after hearing you all talk about these last two issues and that they're admin policies, I wanted to talk about this as something that we need to add. So maybe it is an admin policy that we need to make it. I am proposing that we adopt the Michigan Township Association suggested methods of note-taking for the Board of Trustees, the Planning Commission, the ZBA, and actually any other group that has to take minutes. The most current directions for the MTA are attached. I'm not sure if there was a copy left over there. If not, then please email me and I will send it to you. And also I feel that if the document from the MTA is updated, that we need to update along with it. So the other thing that we can do in addition, which we legally have to provide note-taking, is to post, because we're videotaping the meeting, we can post the videotape online, like on a YouTube. And so what the Michigan Township Association does is interpret Michigan law so we can understand it. Because if you've read anything legal, it's difficult to understand. So one of the things that they're suggesting is that the MTA suggests minutes must at a minimum indicate the body who's meeting, like the Township Board or the Zoning Board of Appeals, etc. The date, time, and location of the meeting, motions and resolutions made, supported and results of the motion, and any action taken by the body which is not specifically indicated in motions or resolutions. When a public body conducts a public hearing, always within a public meeting, the minutes should include the comments and arguments of those promoting or opposing a particular matter which is the subject of the public hearing, and the fact that an opportunity to be heard was given to those present. So, that's for a public hearing. So at that time, then you're going to record everybody's comments, either for or against, or whatever else they have to say. Although the minutes do not have to include a verbatim recitation of all statements made at the meeting, a record of the topics or issues addressed during a meeting and any motions made, whether carried out or not, provides a complete description of the proceedings of the meetings. We also note that if the township board has adopted a policy of following the provisions of Robert's Rules of Order, it requires the recording of all motions, whether passed or not, in the meeting minutes. Finally, we note that an accurate record of all motions offered and their disposition can avoid future disagreements or questions concerning those motions. I know that it takes, I don't know. I would imagine that it takes an incredible amount of time to transpose minutes that include more than is required by the law for both the planning commission and the board of trustees. So we're just trying to follow the law. What we've been doing is more than the law asks for. And then we end up having, like, the planning commission, people are saying, I did say that, or I didn't say that, because it's impossible to collect every word that's said. Now, if you want to know what everybody said, you can watch the tape, because it's going to be on videotape, it's going to be publicly posted. So what I want to do is for us to adopt this, the MTA's suggestions for capturing minutes at meetings.
Well, of course, there's the clerk, and Kathy is a former clerk. We've been doing this. Kathy's been doing it longer than I have, but when I look through this packet that you printed for us, and I see the example that they gave, which would be on page, so they give us an agenda on page 11, and then they give us the draft minutes on page 12, 13, and 14. Yep. So in this, they didn't have anything on the agenda. They had nothing on unfinished business or new business, but under committee reports, they had the elephant committee, and they do give quite a bit of detail on that. That says that the report is on file in the clerk's office, but the minutes also show quite a bit of detail. So when I'm looking at this, I think there's many different ways to read the MTA's suggestions in this packet. And so I think it's vitally important that residents, because we don't offer the video yet. We don't have the capability to offer that. So especially, but right now we don't. So I think it's very important that, and it's my time. I mean, I'm a salaried employee, so it doesn't cost the township any more money if I'm willing to put the hours in. I think it's important to capture what went on at the meeting beyond the minimum requirements. I mean, I'm delighted that I can put the dark skies presentation in these minutes, because I want people to reflect back and to see that we were paying attention and what that, at least a synopsis of what that was.
So it's public hearings where you have to include what everybody says.
Sure, but I think it's important for residents that can't be here to have a fuller understanding of what happened in the meeting. And, when I took over as clerk, I really based my formatting on what former clerk Kennedy had done. I mean, the last meeting minutes that I have from her in April of 2021, her meeting minutes are lengthy, and she does capture what everybody is saying. So that is actually that's how I formatted what I was doing. If you look at my minutes, it's a similar format. And I looked at some of the other townships, and there's different ways that they do it, but there are other townships that capture what happened in the meeting. So I think it's very important. I think if we get to the point where we really can put this online and people do have a chance to see everything that happened in the that would be the time to put less. in.
Okay, so then can we say that we can move this to the future? When we have an upgraded system
Sure.
that we can, record and post on, where we decide, YouTube?
Whatever's the
Yeah.
best.
Yeah, I don't think the
Great.
website, I don't know how much space
Right.
is
Yeah.
on the server. So, and Say and I were talking about this earlier today, you know, that I told her I'd try to create a big township YouTube channel and just turn it over,
Right.
you know, and I'm.
Yeah,
glad
that
to
would be
do that.
fantastic. Yeah, I mean, that would be great. I would love not to spend 5-6 hours.
Right, right.
But it's very, but I feel it's important. So
Sure.
I put the
So-
time in.
We can talk about this again, once we have established our ability to post our videotape meetings online.
That would be great.
All right.
Yes, I like that. And I think I see both of your issues and it's difficult. And I think on some of those, the public comment portion is so-and-so said something. So it is hard to catch everything, but we all want everybody to hear what we have to say. So fortunately, we all agree, we want to move into the 21st century where people can view our thing. And I just remember YouTube from Tom McKernan's son here way back in like 2017 or something, saying you could do that. There's
Yeah.
got to be a better way.
And
Exactly.
And where I used to work, we did that, but then, the university developed its own, spaceship and they do it themselves. But for a while, we had them posted on
Okay.
YouTube.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm
Okay.
sure there are a lot of ways to do it, and I don't know because I'm not an IT professional. But somebody will know, and will let us know.
maybe someone in this room. Yeah,
Quick comment, one of my recent neighbors is an IT. Yeah, I can get some information for them.
that would be fantastic.
That'd be
I'll give you my
great.
business
Thank
card
you.
and Have any help we can get, and we know there's people in the community that would be happy to help out, so that's fantastic, thank you for offering that. Okay, so we're gonna table this, is this what I'm hearing?
Yes.
We'll table,
Now, you, Sandy.
I move that we table this
That's
I'm-
something.
until we have determined how we can post the tapes of our meetings online.
Say it one more time, Sandy, say that once more, please,
I would,
until,
Move that we table this until the time we determine how we can post the meeting minutes online.
okay.
the meeting online, right?
Yes.
Yes, the meeting online.
Meeting online. Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Sandy. So motion from Sandy. I'll support that one. Support for me. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay. Thank you. All right, the next one is considering adding IT staff member.
So I'm bringing up this and the next one because we're getting ready to work on the budget, so. We need to figure out how much money we have and can we add additional personnel? I think that, so. One of the things I really wanted to do after getting elected was improve our website, which was. Like the worst in the county. Well, so it's more user friendly. We did hire a firm. Who did the backdoor stuff so that it does work better. But it is no one's dedicated job to update it. So there's like no one in charge. We have engaged the same company who updated it. We can sends them an email and says, can you put this on our webpage? And they do it. But I reviewed 12 townships and web pages, hoping that we were going to get something a lot more exciting than ours. But because it's no one's named job, I think it looks really sad, and there could be a whole lot more information on there than there is. For instance, photographs. Nobody wants to keep looking at the state police station all the time. There are so many photographers in Sylvan Township mean, we've seen them in some of, the local news publications. I would love to have some kind of contest. Maybe we can't give away prizes, but we can certainly call out the person who took the photograph and then have it rotating photographs. So you're not looking at the same thing all the time. I think there's so much information that we could put on the website. One of them is the statutory duties of elected people. What is it that you're supposed to be doing? Having pictures and more prominent, how to contact people who you elected or who have other information that you need to get. About how local government operates. Excuse me, and a Cliff's Notes version of Robert's rules so people can understand how a meeting actually runs. So and I know that our neighboring township has somebody and they found their person by just like advertising on the website saying, we need help. You know, and of course, this is a paid position. I had hoped that we would have been selected by the University of Michigan School of Information to have a student review our site, and then we could have hired somebody from the graduate school to update our site. But we didn't get selected. So again, it's carried on into September. But I think that just regular people can look at it and say, oh gosh, these things would really make the website a lot more useful. So I'm proposing that we add a dedicated IT staff person. If we could share it with other townships, that would be even better. So I'm proposing that we talk about adding an IT person.
Well, as you and I talked about today, you know, we have IT right. That takes care of all the big stuff, and I help with the little stuff here in the township. We have Schumacher Group, who we pay to put on the website, that does an incredible job at speed of doing it. I mean, you send them an email and it's done. No problem. As far as photos, anything else you want on there, they just need to get it. It's as simple as that.
But I think the information that they get though comes from each department.
Yeah, I'm sure
Yeah.
you send them emails. I know I send them
Yeah.
emails.
But me sending an IT person that email to then go to STG to put it on the website for them to do, I mean, we're paying the $750 a year for that gold package.
Right.
For them to do this kind of thing. And I know it doesn't cover everything that you're talking about, Sandy, but I don't know where I'm not quite sure where an IT person fits into the package that we've already paid for.
Correct. That's
Well,
fine.
when that package is up for renewal, we could discontinue that and use our own IT person to make the updates to it.
I don't think we're gonna get anybody cheap than $750.
I don't think we are going to get any.
And they'll make that in 2 weeks.
I think what we could do though, is we would designate each department that if you have something that goes on the website, that everyone's very clear on that process, which there's a certain email address that you use
Right.
that
Yeah.
Kathy sent out, so you know, and you're very clear, like, this is my department, this needs to go on
Okay.
there, and then that is, and I think we've done a pretty good job. Sometimes there's a little confusion, but.
And I know we talked to them about the photos and everything up front,
Right.
but nobody's bothered to take
Right.
it.
Well, there's nobody that's following
And I
up
think
with it.
Kate was gonna give us some photos,
Yeah.
and then I think the deputy, just, you know, she was deputy clerk for a little bit, and then I think it just kind of fell apart. So I think maybe poking them, I think you're really right, Sandy, though, and I love the reaction from the audience, and you said nobody wants to look at that state police car, in the brick wall
Right.
anymore, so, yeah.
I mean, I
people are
think
feeling
idea of
that,
rotating
so,
photos would be great. Wilderness.
Yeah, some
absolutely. So we
websites,
need
they
to-
actually go through a marquee.
Right, absolutely, and we talked about that,
Right, we
and we
did.
carousel of
Yes.
it, so,
This happened,
right.
is my question.
Right, well, and I think to your point, Sandy, a little bit too, one of the things we've talked about is that there's really not somebody here whose job it is.
Right.
So we're all kind of sending things, and so if we assigned it to Susan or someone to, you know, to work on some of these
Yes.
things. right now to be a point person, continue with the contract, and we can see when that contract is up. And then talk about it at our budget time, which we
Okay.
gotta do quickly, so,
Okay.
Right. Right, but thank you for bringing it up, Sandy, it's true that, you know, we work so hard on the website and then it's up and it just kind of falls off the radar, but there's a lot of tweaks and things that need to be
It's
done for sure.
it's a major step.
Right.
Major.
Oh, well, there's no comparison.
No, there is not. And I think the site is very user friendly. It's very easy to navigate.
I think our statutory duties are listed, because I know when I worked on developing my page, that was the first,
Right.
They are there.
yeah, that was what I included.
They are.
I'll go back and look.
Yes, those, that
If you
is,
go under each office,
yeah, it'll show
you'll
our
see them there.
statutory duties.
So I wasn't moving anything, was I? I just wanted to have a discussion.
Okay,
If I was moving
Perfect.
anything, then I suggest that we discuss it and we'll table this and discuss it again in the future. We'll see what we can work out on our own.
all right. Sandy has a motion to table,
I'll second.
indefinitely, Rod, to support, not indefinitely, but to a point we can discuss in the future. I don't wanna, I'm not saying. All right, so you have that support Sandy and support from Rod. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. All right, thank you. Motion carries. The next item is consideration of adding an office manager position.
Yes. So, after coming into office, the thing that was most apparent is that everybody who was here was worked to death. And, I held elected office before in a city where they had a lot of employees. People worked a lot because they were really engaged. And here they're working a lot because there's just so much detail work that has to be done, that there's a lot of higher issues that just get looked over, like the website, because it's nobody's job. I think that having an office manager, this is a job description that everyone can contribute to. An office manager could research purchases, like all the time that Rob spent looking at a postage machine. All of the time that Amanda spent looking up audio and visual upgrades to this room. Anytime that there's any kind of machines or ordering anything, that anytime that you want to find a vendor that charges less, that gives you the same thing. And could also be the point person for the website. I don't know if we can get all the skills together, but it would be nice if we could.
We kind of got the credit card that three of us have for order. So we've got that kind of covered right now, I think. Because we don't want to just give a credit card to somebody.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the last part of it.
We don't want to just give a credit card to somebody.
That's
It's.
process.
No, I know that, but yeah, we got three people that have a credit card right now.
Yeah.
To use for exactly that,
Yes,
to find a better price.
but you spent, it's not in your statutory duty to buy a postage machine.
Well, so that was a while back, but yeah, but.
It's
something
not
we need.
listed as a statutory duty.
We
So
do
it
a
takes
lot of-
time away from your statutory duty to do the thing that has nothing to do with your statutory duty.
Right. I can think of a lot of different things that I could foresee, that I could see an office manager doing. One thing, Sandy has always been a big proponent of training, and I think we're supposed to be keeping track of training for planning commission members.
Oh my gosh.
Things like that, somebody who could keep track of those things.
Right.
We at the board decided that we were gonna start taking credit card payments. And, after they delayed for a while, we finally got it together. They sent us the machine. I have the training video. I haven't gotten the opportunity to identify the people who need to be in that training, get that training going. So these are things that I feel like the board should make the determination, we're gonna do this, and the office manager executes that, brings those things in.
Mhm.
All of the follow-up from these things, we made all of these changes to the policy tonight. So like, who's gonna make the changes tomorrow and then make sure everybody has it? Susan does that, does a pretty good job of that.
Yeah,
But we could even do better because I think she used to collect everybody's books, make sure they're up to date. Now she's kind of like, here's the new policies. And sometimes they get punched in and sometimes they don't. And I'm as bad as the next person. I don't always make sure. But then I'm not operating on all cylinders if I pull my book down. So there's more that we could do.
actually, this person could also do some research on updating the policies that are in there currently. But you mentioned keeping track of training. I don't know about, I just went to a class about planning commissions, and the planning commissioners are supposed to attend during their 3-year appointed term 3 training classes. No one keeps track of that. I don't even know if they all know they're supposed to do that. Because things are not static, things don't stay the same. You need to go at least once a year to a training class to learn what's going on. I think that, continuing education in government is not static because things do change. And I think it's important to keep track of that. As I mentioned, I don't know about the ZBA. And after, elected officials attend their initial training, I don't know if there's a requirement for them either. But it's important, but it's something that nobody does because everybody has so much to do already, they just can't do one more thing.
Right. And then we had also talked about, and this to me kind of goes a little hand in hand with this, if we're gonna think about this and budget for this, that we have talked in the past too about expanding office hours. Maybe 9 to noon, that's a pretty antiquated kind of thing. So if this is something the board wants to pursue, we could have someone, we could maybe have extended hours. I think, in Linden Township, they have an office manager. She's there till 3 or 4. The clerk isn't necessarily there, the supervisor isn't there, but the office manager knows who gets documents. If you bring in a property, a transfer affidavit, that person knows it goes to the assessor. So someone who can be here to receive people and documents, more than just 12 hours a week, because honestly, none of us are working. We couldn't work in 12 hours a week. Those office hours are just not sufficient. So if we're gonna think about this, that's something also that I would propose.
I think expanding to having one evening, however often we determine, would be great.
I tried evening hours.
Yeah.
That was a massive flop.
Why?
Nobody came.
Well, nobody knew.
Yes, they
had a
did.
Terrible website.
We put it out there, and I
It's
found it
not
stopped.
that easy. It is not that easy to let people know that you've changed something. Just because you tried, and I appreciate that. But it will take years before people learn that you've changed something as important as adding evening hours, which I think is a great idea. People who work away from this community, you expect them to take vacation time because there's nobody here.
Well, and more of the reasons to visit the township hall are sort of diminishing, and if we can start taking credit cards, people don't have to physically bring us a check. People get the drop box for taxes. Elections have all new ways of, doing business here at the township without actually being here. But those are all great suggestions, and I don't mean to derail this talking about office hours or something, but
No, but
it
that's
just came.
important.
So.
And I can't think of everything. Because I'm not here in the office. I don't have an office.
That's why you can.
I just come here and see I understand how much work there is to be done. And we always need to be looking at different ways of doing our work so that we're doing our highest and best.
Absolutely. Okay. Do we want to take any action on this tonight or just have it for discussion?
I'd like to take some action. I
Okay,
know how these things go. I would like to move that we vote to add an additional staff person, hours to be determined, and job description to be determined.
Which would include a salary or
Pardon me?
pay scale.
The pay scale, that's an excellent question. Well, this person's gonna have a lot of responsibility.
Right.
And will need to be experienced. So. At least $25 an hour.
I think we need to do some more research though.
Sure.
And,
Absolutely.
you know, and who? Who
Who
is going, you know, that, this is a lot of data to look at this.
I mean, I think
Mm-hmm.
even, you know, maybe at a special meeting sometime to brainstorm and figure out exactly what we want to do.
Right, because y'all are the ones who really know. I mean, I'm just looking, I'm on the outside looking in. Saying, gosh, there are all these things we could do, but
Right.
nobody, there's no one to make it happen.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it would be a matter of us deciding the job description, but then the background information would be pay, I think pay would be a big one, looking at what others are
Sure.
making. And
Right.
comparing apples to apples, you know,
Mhm.
as far as what they're doing.
And you figure out what Lincoln does.
Yeah, I was gonna say, that's a pretty
Right.
easy check
Right.
from them. I would feel, yeah, more comfortable having that information. I mean, Sandy, I really support this idea. I don't know if I really support this idea, and I would love to gather some more information and move forward and sort of build it into our budget thing as we go. As we're talking about this.
Because we have a little
So-
time crunch. You know, we wouldn't have this decided before we finish up with the budget.
Well, it could always be a
Well-
placeholder there though.
Okay,
That's true, right. Right, the budget is not a mandate to spend. If we budget for it and maybe we don't find the right person, because I think you're right. I think we're gonna really want to have somebody who knows what they're doing, reliable, has a little experience, and it's probably not gonna be really easy to come by.
Yeah, somebody motivated to do.
Right.
There's a
Yes,
lot of
right,
different
right.
tasks.
but a lot of people prefer doing a lot of different things.
Yeah.
So the person just
Mhm.
might be out here.
Mhm.
So what are we doing? We're,
Well. Sounded like you had started making a motion to that we would vote to add, and then we had some additional discussion.
yeah,
So we can continue with that, or we can. You could amend your motion. Whatever you'd like to,
I don't want to lose that.
right? Do you want to table it to next month?
Oh,
I mean. We're gonna have, we have to have budget discussions, you
Yeah.
know, we can, in the meantime, gather some information, gather, you know, like the job description. I would hate to add a job before we really have the job description.
okay. We can table this to next month. I move
And
that
then
we
we
table
won't
this to
lose
next
it.
month.
Okay,
I'll second
all right, so motion by Sandy, supported by Rod. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
I,
Opposed, say nay. Thank you. So the next item is the consideration of an alternate consultant for our master plan review. And I want everybody to know I did a agenda cover sheet to get posted Thursday. Then Friday, I spoke to the vice president at Carlisle Warman on the phone, and he said, you know, you can put in there, because they, you know, they did come to the planning commission meeting on Thursday. And they said after being at the meeting, he felt there was considerable conflict, or there was conflict in the township about the direction of growth. And that the master plan process would be time consuming and stressful. And so for those reasons, they were gonna decline the work on the master plan review. So then, so now the board, now we need to make a decision. I know there was another, firm they mentioned, McKenna, I think it was. We could,
Who mentioned it?
John Enos from, Carlisle Warman, he's the vice president, that I spoke to on Friday, and he's the one that contacted us, to say about that they wouldn't be taking the work. So he mentioned them. I think there's some other firms around that we could go to. We could ask, Rebecca Harvey, who's been doing some work, with the planning commission already. We could do an RFP where we're gonna have a formal request for quotes.
I
Which-
personally would like to see a planner that's from this area that understands this area, and I think Rebecca's a little far away.
Okay, right.
So I had gone to a planning class and they said, unless you're the city of Grand Rapids. And you're spending $150,000 on the update of your master plan, don't go for an RFP to ask people, don't ask them to send you. An estimate about what they're gonna do, because that will just drag the process out for a very long time. So I think asking around to our neighbors who they use, even though Carlisle and Wortman has been used a lot.
Yeah.
I'm sure there are others, and at the very least, perhaps Carlisle and Wortman might be able to recommend somebody.
Oh, that's true. And they did mention this McKenna. I think there was maybe another one. I can follow up with him and see if he'd, write those for me. I think, he'd be willing to do
So
that.
Amanda, I agree, having somebody who's done at least work in the county
Right.
or near us, maybe in Jackson County.
Well, we've got enough around us. It shouldn't
Yeah.
be hard to find somebody at Ann Arbor base or Jackson or somewhere. So. So unfortunately, this will delay the process a little bit, whereas I think we were hoping to get started a little earlier, so. I suppose, and this list of listed items, this is pretty much just a discussion item at this point, to let everybody know that communication had come from them. And, I can follow up with him and see who he recommends. Sure. We can follow up with, local communities, see who they've used, if they would recommend those people. And then I guess, come in, hopefully in March. And be able to, move forward on that. Okay, so. All right, that's just, we're gonna just to have a discussion then, we don't really have, we'll just put that on there, those will be action items with follow-up. Should I move to table this for a month? Sandy did such a nice time making sure that all the others had motions and we don't lose things, so I'll move that we, table this item. For next month.
I'll second.
You motion from Kathy, supported by Rod. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, say nay. Thank you. So the next item is this consideration of town hall discussions for planning education. So. We were thinking if now we're going to be waiting possibly for a little while. It would be beneficial to do some educational seminars for everybody, for all of us. I mentioned this to my husband earlier and he was like, I would come to that. That would be great. To learn about what the planning commission does, what the ZBA does, what's the master plan process, or other topics. And we were, thinking that we could do something like perhaps March, April, May, 3 months in a row. then it'll be summer, people might not be so interested and engaged, but we could have some really quality information presented for all of us, for the board, the public, everybody. So I mentioned this when I was talking to John Enos, and he was not opposed to coming out and doing a training session. He said that would be something I could come to do, perhaps. And he mentioned maybe coming out and doing one that would talk about those things, what the planning commission does, what the ZBA does. But there was an email sent to him, proposing, hey, maybe some different topics for 3 months. And he said, well, I haven't looked at the email that much, but off the top of my head, this is what I'm thinking. And he would not be opposed to coming here and doing those for us. Since we were thinking now we might not, our fiscal year is ending March 31st. So I don't know if we're going to be using those funds that we allocated for the master plan review, which I think was $7,500. That maybe we could use some of those funds for this.
Yes.
And then as we're approaching our new budget year, just reincorporate those funds for the master plan review for whoever will be doing it. And we might have a better idea then on the costs. So
would we appropriate, because we're looking at 2 fiscal years between March, April and May. So we would use funds from this fiscal year for March and then funds from the
And we
next
could
fiscal year
do-
for April and.
right, we could do that, or if it's something where they were gonna do it and we paid them one time for free, or we just go into the next fiscal year and then we didn't spend those budgeted monies, we could really roll it over for April, and May. So there's a motion to request that Sandy Schulze contact a planning firm to conduct township hall forums on planning and land use topics. We were thinking maybe for the second Tuesday, since we're here the first Tuesday, just kind of putting it out there. It will obviously depend on their schedule, whoever we end up engaging. Sandy, are you,
I think that's a fine idea.
you're okay with
I
that?
do.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay, so motion from me, supported by Rod. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay. All right, thank you. Motion carries. So that is the end of the agenda and into the new business. And so we just have a couple items left, back to public comment, and then we will have Board of Trustee member comment. Any public comment? Yes.
So I touch on several different things. The first, I'm going to start off with dark skies, and I know that I helped you supply the Dark Skies Committee with our land development standards, because as Steve mentioned, it is not referenced very much in our zoning ordinance. And our land development standards are antiquated like our zoning ordinance is, and they are not even up to the standards for like Washtenaw County, health department, some of these other things. That would be the place, because the land development standards are not codified. I think that would be a really easy place to start, because it is not an ordinance. And so you could actually make some significant changes right there, because the lighting is, those standards are what developers or anybody that's doing any kind of a project is referencing. And those are all the standards that they have to adhere to. Being said on residential, that's a little bit more tricky, because, when I look at things, I don't necessarily address anybody's lighting on their residence. It's pretty hard to go out there and, how you monitor that, but. The second thing is, I agree with having an office manager, because for the very reason that, I'm really not aware of our website protocols, because we haven't had training. So as a staff member, you get a link and a website, and this is kind of what go follow up with them, but it's like, we should all sit down and that would be helpful and an office manager can help follow up, you know, with those kind of things. So I agree with Rod that maybe Linden Township has a description that would help. Anyway, so that's kind of about it, but I was just thinking that, you know, we're a general law township, so we probably need something from a general law township on that, but yeah, it's really hard in this limited amount of time that we're here to try to get everything done. And having somebody help coordinate or a go-to person, because we're all doing it independently, which is fine, you know, and it's working out, but it's like, we just, like the website, I didn't even know that really the credit cards had been, you know, approved and how that, you know, works. And when are we gonna get up and running? I keep telling people, we're in the process, you know,
Yeah.
so, and I don't know when that's gonna be.
Right. So that's interesting too, and that's where I think I would love to learn too, because of the land standards. So we have land development standards that are separate from our ordinances, and those are when someone comes in, then those are provided to them, they we say, oh, and here's our land, and they probably know to ask for those, or when,
Yeah, it depends on what the project is, and those are what Sue Dickinson.
right, I remember Sue
she
Dickinson.
reviews, she doesn't go, I do the zoning, she does the land development standards.
Okay.
And like she says, I mean, she's just jumped ahead. I don't know if you've announced that she's retiring,
No, I
you know,
was just thinking,
but she, you know, there's the fact that those exist. She's the one that, and she, you know, make sure that those are being carried out, but there's things that are so old, she can't even say you have to use this because it's antiquated.
Mm.
If nobody's using it anymore. Those need to be gone through, and it's the who.
right. Right, right, but we really need to, I mean,
And
it feels like everything's old.
You know, if you're gonna budget, please consider budgeting to get the land development standards updated and upgraded. And maybe that's hiring an MCI to do that, it's probably gonna be, you know, a ticket. You know, to get that done, but that's important.
Mhm. Right. No, and I have not announced, but Sue Dickinson, who has been our faithful, trustful, engineer at Midwestern Consulting, is retiring, or she has. I think starting January, she was gonna be going down to part-time, and effective this summer, be, completely done. So she has, a person, Adam, I can't remember what his last name is, but he's working alongside her right now, as she transitions out. But that will really be a huge loss for us because she is, committed, she knows her stuff, she's always looking out for Sylvan Township in ways that we're just lucky to have people who, you know, are such good workers and just want to go above and beyond. And Sue's one of those people, so I'm sure her replacement will be capable, but we will miss her tremendously. So. Yes, okay. Any other public comment? Yes. Patrick.
Yes, a few things, I'm gonna try to be fast. First of all, I'm interested, and maybe other members of the public would be interested also, if you talk about land development standards, since they are not, as Carol said, they're not codified. Who is the authority over determining what those land development standards are, and who makes the decision on how to modify them, what's the process? If you don't know, that's fine, but I think we need to make sure everybody knows.
They're adopted by the board. So they're very, very old, and they were, like I said, never codified, but they were adopted. And so the board would actually adopt them.
There was a motion many years ago
Many.
to approve this.
There's
Rather large
small-
documents.
Yeah,
I got a copy of it.
yeah.
It was large.
Yeah.
Okay, that's one thing. So the second thing I want to mention is I want to clarify a matter that Mr. Reinhardt has been commented about. And that was, what happened at the December planning commission meeting. As you all on the board know, I sent a letter to the board reacting to that meeting at the time. And I was very specific about what I was reacting to. I don't know whether anybody on the planning, I don't know who read the conditional rezoning application and who did, that's hard to tell. But what I noted specifically was that people were told to disregard the conditions, whether they had read them or not. That was my main thing. Of course, I don't know what happened in the closed session with the lawyer or anything like that either, but I wanted to clarify what the issue was from my perspective and what I observed. And when I listened to the audio recording, that was indeed the case. I don't even know if any of the planning commission members acted according to that flawed guidance that you have to disregard the condition. But it certainly seemed like they could have. And that was my issue there. About the dark skies thing. I think a lot of things were said in the presentation that are not common knowledge about health effects to wildlife and to humans, especially. I have to admit that I do not have a lot of knowledge about this. I'm glad that there were some references. I think Mr. Wright mentioned that there were some references to studies or papers or something. I want to encourage all of the board members to read that information. And as soon as I get the links, I'm going to put it out to Free Sylvan or whatever, and of course read it myself too. Because people really have to understand, well, why are we doing something? This doesn't appear on the nightly news every night, right? So most people, it's not common knowledge. In addition to many other people, are concerned about what's happening to our wildlife, our insects, birds, etc., and what may be happening to human beings. And I think it might be a combination of things. Actually. It might be light, it might be other things too. It might be other toxic chemical stuff, right? Probably, I would say, it's probably electromagnetic pollution as well, of which light is part of the electromagnetic spectrum, so that's not a big surprise. But I guess it's up to everybody to become as well informed personally as possible, so that we know what is truly important here. I'm going to take that upon myself now. I hope you all do too. Thank you.
And this is another great thing that would be to be on the website, really, are these the printouts that, you know, the dark skies people, Mr. Wright put these together for us, and I apologize if we didn't have them out there, but this is great. And he's got the reference to the links. So I will send this, but in the meantime, Patrick and anyone else from the audience, I will be happy to send you Mr. Wright's, or it's not just his, the entire Dark Sky organization's information they provided to us.
Yeah, it is in the board package. I saw it. I don't know if the links to the references are on there. I don't.
There's,
So we have these. She gave us, we have these.
you'd have to probably type them in, you know, to find.
Yeah, no. So if you guys have a document with live links.
Well, I'd have to look and see if it has a live link.
Well, having the
But-
color was also the important part of it. because
Right.
It's just black and white. I mean, that's.
Oh,
that's fine.
yeah,
It's just
yeah,
like the
that's not
color,
really
yes, the
yeah,
color
that's
is
true.
truly important.
Right. Yes. Well, I can send that, Patrick. I don't know if it'll have live links in it, and anyone else who wants to have that. And then we can put this on the website also.
And just so you know, there are links for all those brochures that we gave you that you can actually bring them up.
So I bet Steve would give it, send it to you as a PDF, and the links will be left.
That's true. Yeah. Okay, I can ask him for that. I'm sure he'd be happy to provide that.
Because he did the local one.
What's that? He did the local,
Steve did.
yeah,
He'd be more than happy to share, I'm sure.
yes, I'm sure. Right, any other public comments? Yes, Steve.
Dave Reinhardt again. I just want to say thanks to the board for letting Dark Sky do their presentation. And it seems as though that we can probably make some changes that are not burdensome to the citizens, yet the results are what we want to head towards for Dark Sky. Secondly, the training issues that Sandy brought up, I just can't recommend training. I know, I'm the first one saying I'm too busy to go to training. But I know that, our assessor, Catherine, she documents, we train every year, even though we only have to go every 2 years, and it's just immensely helpful, especially in the small government, things change. And that is time well spent. So thanks, Andy, for pushing on that and the topics that you brought up.
Dan,
Yeah, so thanks for I thought the dark sky thing, was great. The last couple big things that have sort of come across in the township, like pollution is always one of the things that everyone's worried about, but no one's brought it up, and that kind of quantifies it and really puts a lot of weight behind the problem, right? That was one thing. The other thing is the I guess the master plan, Carlisle Wortman thing. I'm just curious. So thinking back, late last year, Scott Cooper said they won't work with you guys. They won't. He said it in 2 different meetings. And then in December, whenever it was, early January, she comes in, I'm like, oh, this is great. And I'm thinking back of like how that meeting happened, and there's only 6 of us maybe in the audience, right? And I think there was 2 comments about the future land use map. One of them was my comment. And then after the meeting, she decided that we're too much trouble to work with. So I'm wondering, was it the meeting that pushed her over the edge, or is there something under this whole thing that we don't that we don't know about? I mean, it's just curious that they took the time to come out here and do it. It was a pretty even keeled meeting. It was extremely even keeled meeting. A lot of thoughtful questions to her from the planning commission, and then everything ended well, and then they turn tail and run. I'm just curious if there's any other insight that you could share about that. And I mean, and the big reason is like, we were so close to like, let's push this over the hill, because now we're moving, now we're 10 steps backwards, you know. So it's kind of like, you know, a little deflating, and I'm sure that you guys are too. So just wondering.
yeah. Well, I followed up with Mr. Enos because I wanted to ask that specific question. I knew Mr. Cooper had alleged those facts in the past, and John assured me that's not the case. It's not the case at all. There's not anybody here that they wouldn't work with. And I can't speak to it because I like you, we felt like, hey, this is good. They're coming out here, we're getting the ball rolling, and I was shocked, like really shocked. And, you know, I don't attend the planning commission meetings a lot. I know the attorney has said you're the supervisor, you make the recommendations, it's better you stay at an arm's length, whatever. So I don't know what was said at that meeting. But all I know is they were here in game, and the next day they weren't. And I don't know, and I can't say, you know, if there's things we don't know about, we don't know about those things. But I can say that he assured me it wasn't anybody who's here, who's working here, or staff members here that they wouldn't work with. They said they have a lot of respect for us, but that he wasn't gonna put his staff person in a situation to be out here and have it be stressful, time consuming. So that's all I can say, you know, all I know about it, so that's all I can say about it. If there's other things that are not known.
There were some negative comments during the planning, and I think that's what that made us. Some negativity.
There were 2 comments about the future land use map.
I'm just saying that it was not just an even meeting, you know, there was some negative comments, so I think that does.
Well,
I mean, it's their prerogative.
It's
I'm not understanding that.
You know.
I mean, we've got the recording of the meeting. Wouldn't it be great to like watch that again and go, what happened? Because that doesn't, a meeting like that, I've been in a lot of meetings, not just this township, been in a lot of meetings, and that the temperature in that meeting would not make you cut and run.
Well,
It's
something
good.
made her cut and run.
Yeah.
Maybe they're experienced enough to see or know or feel that maybe there's things rumbling under that aren't, right. I don't know. They're not a fly by night. They've been around a long time. They're no strangers to working in communities where there's, trouble or strife or discord or whatever. And so, yeah, I don't know. It's disappointing. The good news is, when I talked to him about the training, he said, yeah, well, I'll come out there and do training. So it's not like I'm not working with Sylvan Township on that particular issue. They were not willing to, engage and take that on. So good news, bad news. Any other public discussion? All right, I've got a couple things under the board of member comment. I just want to say that the Planning Commission and Zoning Board of Appeals had a joint meeting with Rebecca Harvey to kick off the discussion for the 3 ordinances that the Township Board requested. Solar administrative review and Lake District. So out of that meeting, I think as the board prioritized, the solar and the administrative review are taking precedent. I think we could kind of prioritize those. So at this point, Ms. Harvey is in the information gathering stage and may have draft language for those 2 ordinances in the next few PC meetings. And we're going to leave the Lake District for a time where we can have a little bit more time to work on it. I think that one, we had prioritized that the least. So thank you for the, Planning Commission and the Zoning Board of Appeals and Carol for helping put that meeting together and bring everybody together with Rebecca to talk about the goals, things, we identified these at our joint meeting in 2021, sort of revisit it and reframe it so Rebecca can help draft the best ordinances. And I just sent around to the board. I know Sandy already signed up for it. It was the city of Ann Arbor is putting together, they're pushing a solar educational series, and they're putting together, it's like an hour or 2 Zoom, it's for businesses. But it's not just the city of Ann Arbor, they're expanding it to anybody in Washtenaw County who's interested. And they're gonna, I think mostly for businesses, gonna show you how you can benefit from solar, how you would do a request for solar services, how you would interpret those, like really giving everybody information on how to guide and bring solar to them. And what was interesting to me is that it's a city of Ann Arbor program, but they're extending it to anyone in Washtenaw County. So, this is we're very timely on this, or maybe behind the time on this, but a lot of communities already have solar ordinances. But I just think, wow, this is coming. So I'm glad that we're thinking about it and addressing these solar things. And I can send that information to anybody else who would be interested in signing up for that Zoom session through the city. They're going to be providing those services free of charge to anybody in Washtenaw County. So that was interesting. Consumers Energy, they came in and talked to us a while ago. Just today, they sent us an invitation for a landowner open house. It's going to be March 15th from 5 to 7 at the Backstreet Meeting and Hall space in Stockbridge. It says they're going to feed you, serve you dinner and beverages. Attire is casual. There's an RSVP here. This flyer has gone to all landowners on the pipeline route, and she sent it to us also. So it's information about the rollout of the pipeline. They're going to be doing a portion from, right at where they keep having the flares, right on the other side of 94, up past Stockbridge, and then a second portion that goes further up to their end destination. So the last meeting we had with consumers, I felt like was really positive. Amanda sat in there with me, and they have their line worked out. They've got all their easements in place that they need to. They recognize that they're,
But I heard that they may change it over Gotcha's land. Because of his
Oh.
lawsuit, so that may shift.
it may shift. Well, we just got information that, yeah, that our attorney has been representing on that. There's a parcel where, consumers wants an easement and the landowner isn't agreeing to it, and so there's a condemnation suit going on right now because ultimately consumers is a utility and they can ask you nicely and offer you money, and then they ultimately can condemn your land and take it because it's for a public utility. Whether that's right or wrong is up for debate, but that's, the attorney tells us right now, that's what they can do. So there is a parcel, kind of down by Brown Drive where that's occurring. But our attorney is handling it for us. Mostly they're interested in where our lines might be under. But that just has to do with that landowner.
And
So
it's a
that one.
consent judgment property.
And it's a judge, yes, a property where there's a consent judgment on it, so it's right in that. Thick of things back there. But they were very kind and they recognized, we told them that we'd heard they were heavy-handed with their tactics, which we didn't appreciate when they were approaching residents, and they acknowledged that, and have a new team. So from what they were telling us, things are better, people seem to be happy. I haven't heard complaints recently, so perhaps that's true. They were talking about coming to one of our board meetings and doing a presentation, maybe in March. And I can still see if they'd be willing to do that. But in the meantime, I'm gonna post this on our front door and we'll put this on the website. It's not too far, it's Stockbridge. And you can go and get her information. And we will continue to give you information as we get it to from consumers. I think that's all I have. Does anybody else have?
So. If you see in front of you with the temporary gathering permit application, this is in response to the fireworks application that I received. For Robin Hills Farms, it's the Chelsea Chamber of Commerce for Robin Hills Farms. They are wanting to have a fireworks display. This next summer. And our ordinance requires if it's more than 150 people, then we had this additional application, which we did not have a draft. So I worked on this with Attorney Dahl, and I just wanted to put this in front of you right now to look it over. I thought maybe we could approve this at the budget meeting that we have. And then, Mr. Dahl said that we would just, there's a fee schedule attached. We would just incorporate that. We would adopt it and incorporate that into our fee schedule. So if you could please just take a look at this before, the next meeting. Also wanted to let you know, in response to Patrick asking if we could use the township hall for a public forum for residents to come together and just talk about the current issues, especially going into the master plan. I know we had some discussion about that, and Kathy had said, that felt appropriate because it was for township, for the township. And then Rod, you had also added that we needed to have a board member present for that. And so I reached out to Patrick and said I would be willing to be that board member to facilitate that. I know we need to work around anything else that we have scheduled. Patrick and I need to talk about it more, but I wanted to let you know that that does feel like a positive forum for residents to be able to come to that meeting and have more dialogue about their needs, especially going into the master plan process. So.
My only wonder, maybe, and I could ask the attorney that if we had a quorum of our board here, because I would want to be here, I want to hear, and I'm sure Sandy and Rod and Amanda, if you're going to be here, I mean, it feels, so then we have concerns there. We can't violate the Open Meetings Act if we have a quorum of people together. If we're at the grocery store, all looking in the same freezer case, I think that's okay, but in situations where things are going to be discussed that the board is going to vote on, it's a violation of the Open Meeting Act. So I would just want to make sure that we're clear of that and that,
Well, then we would maybe just have to post.
Right,
We'd have to
well,
post a
and
notice
that's
just to
right.
cover, not knowing who was going to be able to attend as long as it's
Right.
posted appropriately.
Well, but then also there's minutes. So there's, the Open Meetings Act, it's not just posting, there has to be certain things that are, so, and that changes a little bit. I mean,
Right.
it's just something to be cognizant of.
Right.
Because I
clarification.
wouldn't, exactly. Cause I'm sure we all would wanna hear, but then we're hamstrung by this, you know, the Open Meetings Act, which is a good thing.
Yeah, and I looked at it as my role would just be to open up, you know, the township hall and just kind of be there in the background. Just to give the residents a forum to be able to discuss.
I would feel comfortable if we could get certain things posted on the website so that people can read about them ahead of time.
Well,
Because I think that would answer some questions for people, so at least they have some background information, like what's Robert's rules.
This might be a different context, though. This would be more, this would be a casual forum where, and Patrick and I discussed, because the city of Chelsea does something similar where you have maybe you have a list of well, sometimes it's decided once the group joins, there's a list of topics that you agree to, that you focus on. There will be a moderator so that you can keep people focused
Right.
on what's agreed to. So I think there's more discussion needed, but I just wanted to let you know that I followed up with Patrick, and so I would like to see that happen. I think it would be positive. Also wanted to let you know that today, Mr. Burke of T. Burke Paving came in to pay a bill, and so Susan grabbed me because she wanted me to walk out and look at our parking lot with him. Because she really wants this parking lot paved, and I know we talked about it, maybe using ARPA funds, and I know no one was interested at the time, but the more I've looked at our carpet and looked at our floors, part of it is because we bring dirt in from the parking lot. So I think that is something that would be valuable to discuss when we're looking at ARPA funds. So he said he would get me a quote, that was just paving what's not paved, but also then, you know, when this looks really good against the sidewalk, but when you go beyond that, it's all starting to crack. And so I'd asked him, I said, can you fix that? And he said, yeah, that's really, really bad because it's all different levels. So he said to do a cut right in front of where it is level would probably be just as costly as just redoing it all. So I'll send that out once he gets that to me, but the point is just gathering data. I think we need to look beyond him, but he was here. So I went out and chatted with him a little bit.
It's kind of ironic because 2 days ago I was looking at that part, I'm coming in, looking at some of the inch wide cracks there, and I'm thinking, we really gotta take care of this.
Yeah.
It's gonna just get worse and worse.
Right. But I think adding, if we decide to go that route with ARPA funds, I mean, paving that area where everyone parks will cut down on the dirt that's brought in to the township. It's pretty icy out there right now.
That was my thing. I was gonna say, it's treacherous out there on that gravel, especially when the ice starts to melt and then it refreezes. It's just slick out there, and they put salt, but it's, you know,
Not the
salt
same
is
as
not.
it's
So for that reason, I think, cause I nearly fell 3 or 4 times going to my car today, and I think, you know, it's not good. You know, that's dangerous. I know those have come in very high.
Yeah.
But we'll see. I mean, and that's, you know, another thing, you gotta have those ARPA funds earmarked by the end of the year. So, I'll be calling a discussion, budget meeting. Mr. Kosik's not here tonight, so I'll get that email out. I've, already lost kind of being ahead of the curve on that. But there has been a lot of things going on. So we'll get it done, and we'll get the budget out, and we'll have a public hearing on it and all that stuff. Any other things?
I got one more.
Okay.
We got 7 days to get taxes paid without penalties. I just want to remind people of that because I get yelled at every year. Why can't I waive this penalty? My answer to them is, when you get your tax bill? 2.5 months, you've had 2.5 months to pay it. And legally, I can't waive those fees. So, but I get yelled at every year over it. So I just want to remind people, please pay them.
And are you here, remind me, are you here on that last day?
I'm here,
You're here all day, right?
I set a precedence a while back of being here both days,
What,
14th and 28th. The 14th, I
Oh.
am not required to be here,
oh, I see. Okay,
but I've kind of set that precedence and people use it.
okay.
And so I plan to continue that.
So the 14th is the last day to pay taxes, and the 28th
No.
is, oh, okay, and the
Very
28th is, what's that date then?
28th is the drop dead date before they go to the county. If they're not paid on the 28th, March 1, they go to the county and it's 6% more added on when it does that. So. you Really want to get them paid.
Thanks.
I have a quick question for you, if that's okay,
Sure.
about that. A couple years ago, right? My bank is KeyBank and I pay my taxes online and they've got the guaranteed by date, right? So I mean, you say it, you put in the date and then they go guaranteed by whatever it is. Right? And it was late. I mean, the guaranteed date was before the due date, but it was late. And it was like, and they're like, well, and then it was like this, right? How often does that happen?
The mail
Well-
stinks.
Yeah, all right, so.
Dead serious. I mean, I struck a deal with the post office this year that if I sorted all of the Chelsea bills. And brought them only the Chelsea bills and then tub of everything else, would they keep it local? And they said yes. And I've still had probably 30 people come in and say, I didn't get my tax bill. So the postal system really stinks.
Yeah.
And I tell people, do not mail those in. A lady today, well, I'll get that in the mail. No, don't. Put it in a Dropbox. I mean, gosh, everybody in this township is what, maybe 3 or 4 miles from that Dropbox. Just put it in it.
Well, now you're making me feel stupid, but.
No, but I mean, that was your bank's.
Yeah.
Right.
How can they can't guarantee the mail will do something. They just can't.
All right, I was curious, like, is it just me or? Is it?
No, I actually had a tax bill returned 2 weeks ago that I shipped out in July.
Wow.
So, I mean, December.
Hmm.
This was Winterville. Took almost 2 months to come back.
That's not good.
Okay. Amanda's at the end of her recording time there. We better hurry up and adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
All right.
For that,
All right. Thank you. Motion to adjourn the supporting discussion. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Thank you.
Before you leave, oh, you go turn that off.
Too long.